Okay, so the next one here is actually going to let us use a function from a previous one. I'll have to rewrite that function since I'm doing individual things for each of these, but we want to count the number of vowels in a string. So write a function that takes a string as input and returns the number of vowels, returns the number of vowels, not displays it, that it contains. So let's go ahead and rewrite our isVal function. And we'll write this a little bit differently than before because we want to basically write something that allows us to pass it a single char and tells us whether or not it's a val or not. So it'll be a bool is val, and it's going to take a char c as a parameter. And let's go ahead and implement that. So we want to go ahead and we want this guy to return true if the char that was passed in is either an A, an E, an I, an O, or a U. So we'll return C is equivalent to an A, or C is equivalent to an E, or C is equivalent to an I, or C is equivalent to an O, or C is equivalent to a U. And this is handling all the lowercase ones. Notice you cannot take the shortcut and say C equal A or E or I or O or U. You have to specify out C is equivalent to A or C is equivalent to E, so on and so forth. So this guy will return the result of this Boolean expression. This Boolean expression is true only if the one second, the alarm's going off. All right, and we're back. So sorry for all the interruptions. I'm making these videos back to back, so it's extra hilarious to me. So in any case, we're writing a little helper function here called isVal. That'll take in a char. We're just going to return true if that char is any one of A, E, I, O, U, all lowercase. If you want to support uppercase vowels, you can. Um, the question only asks you to look at lowercase, so you decide. All right, so now that we have that ability, we can ask a quick question. Is this individual char a vowel? So now we're going to write another function that'll take a string as input and it returns the number of vowels it finds. So this guy's going to return an int since it's going to return a count, how many vowels. And let's just call this how many vowels. And this guy will take in a string s as a parameter, so we'll prototype it there. Now let's go and implement it below main. All right, so we're going to write our stock for loop. Print I is equal to 0. I is less than s dot length, the number of characters that are in s, I plus plus. And again, this has very little to do with strings. This is just taking I on a voyage between 0 and whatever the number of characters in s is minus 1. Each time through, we want to ask the question, if is val s at bucket I, if the current character we're looking at is a val, we want to do something. What do we want to do? Well, we want to increment a count. So we're going to need to create a variable up here before the for loop. And let's make this int. Let's call it count. And we'll start off at 0 since we've seen 0 vowels so far. Then we'll have our loop that goes through every character in our string. If the character at bucket I that we're looking at is a vowel, we'll go ahead and say count plus plus. All right. And then after that for loop is done, so we've already checked every single character in the entire string, we'll go ahead and just return whatever our count ended up being. All right, so now we can go ahead and test this. How many vowels? We'll pass it hello world as an example. Now remember, how many vowels returns an int. I am not doing anything with that int yet. So if I run this program right now, since all programs begin and end with main, the output of this will be nothing. So if I want it to display something, I need to either display it directly. And how many vowels should we have? We should have 1, 2, 3 vowels in that guy. So there's our 3. And then let's like we've done in some of the other ones, go ahead and store that result in a variable in case we want to use it again. So we'll say int, call it answer again, is equal to how many vowels, and we'll call this guy woot, LOL, I don't know, elephant or something like that, just made up words. And then we'll output answer. And let's see, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 vowels should be in that one. And there's our 6. Okay, so there is the answer to that one, or an answer to that one. And that's an example of utilizing one of our earlier functions or utilizing a little helper function like this. Nothing prevented us from actually putting this code inside of here. Would have looked a little scarier or whatever, but if you imagine that you might want to be able to detect vowels every now and then, it could be handy to have it just in a little function format so that whenever you need it, you can just call it.